Invisible zippers can make or break the look of your handmade garments. If you've struggled with rippling seams, peeking zipper teeth, or that annoying gap at the neckline, you're about to discover exactly how to fix those issues. After watching this video, you'll be able to install invisible zippers that are truly invisible, with smooth seams that look completely professional. Let's dive into the 5 most common invisible zipper problems and their solutions. Have you ever tried sewing a zipper into a blouse or dress made of light fabric like silk or rayon, only to find your seam turned out really wavy? This happens to so many sewists, and it's incredibly frustrating. The problem occurs because there's a mismatch between the weight of the zipper tape and your fabric. The zipper tape is sturdy and doesn't stretch much, while fabrics like silk charmeuse or rayon challis are lightweight with a lot of give. When you sew them together, the fabric stretches slightly as you sew, creating those annoying ripples. The fix is surprisingly simple. Apply strips of lightweight interfacing along the seam before you sew the zipper in. Here's exactly how to do it. First, you'll want to cut strips of lightweight interfacing that match the length of your zipper plus about an extra inch for good measure. Make these strips about an inch wide. You don't need anything too bulky, just enough to stabilize the seam area. Next, place these strips on the wrong side of your fabric, centering them right over the area where your zipper will be installed. Remember, we're working on the wrong side of the fabric, so this interfacing won't be visible in your finished garment. When it comes to choosing your interfacing, I found that for delicate fabrics like silk or lightweight rayon, a knit interfacing works much better than a woven one. The knit interfacing has a bit of give to it, which means there won't be such a stark contrast between the interfaced area and the rest of your fabric. This creates a more natural transition and helps everything drape more beautifully. I discovered this trick when making a dress for a friend's wedding in a slippery silk charmeuse. After 2 failed attempts with wavy zippers, I tried interfacing the seam, and it was like magic. The seam became more stable, less prone to stretching, and the result was flat and crisp. This method works beautifully with the Seamwork Sloan dress, which has a center back invisible zipper that can get tricky in lightweight fabrics. Ever finished installing a zipper only to find an annoying gap at the top where the zipper stops short of the edge? This used to happen to me all the time, especially with waistbands. This problem usually occurs because standard zipper lengths don't always match our pattern measurements exactly. When the zipper is too short, you're left with that unsightly gap. Or perhaps you just place the zipper a little lower than intended. It can be tough to get it exactly the right spot. The solution might seem obvious, but it's a game changer. Buy a zipper that's about 2 inches longer than what you need. Here's how to use a longer zipper and avoid that gap. Start by installing your zipper as you normally would, but don't worry about that extra length at the top. Just let that extra zipper tape extend above your garment's edge or seam. This gives you some wiggle room for perfect placement. When it comes time to sew the top seam, such as a waistband, you'll need to be a bit careful. Use your hand wheel to manually walk the needle along where the zipper is. This gives you much more control and prevents your needle from accidentally hitting the zipper teeth, which could break your needle or damage your zipper. After you've sewn that top seam, you can simply cut off any excess zipper tape that's sticking out. The stitching will keep your zipper pull from coming off, so don't worry about that. This technique works best for zippers that sit below a waistband, because any extra zipper will just go right into the waistband area and it won't be noticed. It doesn't work as well for zippers that go up to a neckline or another faced area, because the bulk of the zipper might interfere with pressing. In those cases, I prefer to sew a hook and eye above the zipper instead, or just baste the zipper in place so that the stop is right at the seam line. By the way, if you want a chance to really master the invisible zipper while you sew a project of your own choice, be sure to check out our upcoming workshop on invisible zippers. This is one of our monthly skill workshops, and they're free for all Seamwork members, so you have a chance to learn a skill while you sew your next project. I'll put a link to learn more about it below. Now let's talk about a major issue. One of the most common complaints about invisible zippers is that they're not actually invisible. You can see the zipper teeth or the colored tape peeking out from the seam. This happens when you don't stitch close enough to the zipper coil. The farther your stitching line is from the teeth, the more visible they'll be from the outside. The key is to sew as close to the zipper teeth as possible without stitching over them. First and most importantly, use an invisible zipper foot if you have one. This special foot is designed with grooves that guide the zipper teeth and allow your needle to get right next to them without actually sewing over them. It's probably the single best investment you can make if you sew a lot of garments with invisible zippers. If you don't have an invisible zipper foot, don't worry. You can still get good results. As you're sewing, use your fingers to roll the zipper teeth outward away from where your needle will go. This helps expose the part of the tape closest to the teeth so you can get your stitching line as close as possible. It takes a bit of practice, but once you get the hang of it, it works quite well. Before you even start sewing, always press your zipper tape flat with an iron. This is a step many people skip, but it makes a huge difference. When you open up the zipper and press the tape, it exposes the teeth fully and makes it much easier to stitch close to them without accidentally sewing over them. Just be careful with your iron temperature. You don't want to melt the plastic teeth, so use a low synthetic setting and a press cloth. It only takes a few seconds, but it makes all the difference in how close you can get to those teeth. If you're new to invisible zippers, practice on scraps first to find the sweet spot where you're close enough to the teeth without risking the zipper getting caught in your stitches. There's nothing more frustrating than finishing a garment only to find the zipper sticks, catches, or won't close smoothly. If your zipper sticks or won't close smoothly, you've likely sewn over the teeth in some places, or your seam allowances aren't even on both sides. Here's my foolproof method for smooth running zippers. Before you start stitching, take the time to pin both sides of the zipper tape in place on your fabric. Once it's pinned, actually close the zipper to check the alignment. This simple step helps you see if there are any spots where the alignment is off, which could cause problems later when you try to zip it up. If something looks off, now's the time to fix it before you've committed with permanent stitches. As you're sewing, don't rush the process. Stop periodically with your needle down in the fabric, then lift your presser foot and check that you haven't accidentally sewn too close to or over the teeth. It's much easier to make minor adjustments as you go than to unpick everything later on. If you've already sewn the zipper and discover it's sticking in certain spots, all is not lost. Carefully examine where the problem is occurring, then use a seam ripper to remove just those stitches that are crossing over the teeth or getting too close. You can then re-sew just those sections correctly. To make things easier, I often use Wonder Tape, a double-sided washable tape, to secure my zippers before sewing. It holds everything perfectly in place without pins, allowing me to check the zipper operation before committing with stitches. Trust me on this one, I've ruined enough zippers by rushing through this step. Taking your time to check as you go will save you from having to rip out the entire zipper and start over. Many sewists struggle with that tricky part where the zipper ends and the regular seam begins, often resulting in a bump or a misaligned seam. The worst part is this bump at the end of the zipper often shows up in the most obvious place, like right on your butt. It draws attention somewhere you might not want anyone staring at. This bumpy transition happens because you're essentially connecting two different seam types, the zipper seam and the regular garment seam, which can have slightly different placements. Here's my step-by-step method for a smooth transition. When you're sewing in your invisible zipper, don't sew all the way to the bottom. Instead, stop sewing about 2 inches before reaching the end of the zipper. This gives you some room to work with for creating that smooth transition. Next, with the zipper tape still pinned in place, close the zipper completely. This is important because it shows you exactly where the zipper stop will sit when your garment is worn. Take a good look at where the zipper stops on both sides of the fabric and mark these spots carefully with pins or chalk. These marks will be your guides. Now you can open the zipper again and finish sewing it up to those marks you just made. But don't sew the regular seam below the zipper yet. That comes next. Once the zipper is fully installed, it's time to tackle that remaining seam below the zipper. This is where most people run into trouble. The trick is to start your stitching a few stitches before where the zipper stitching ended. This slight overlap helps prevent gaps. For this step, switch to a regular zipper foot, not your invisible zipper foot. The regular foot gives you better control for this transitional area. Begin with a slightly wider seam allowance right at the point where you're connecting to the zipper, then gradually taper it to match the regular seam allowance as you sew down. This slight adjustment helps ease the transition between the two different seam types. After you've sewn the seam, press it open below the zipper to reduce bulk. This pressing step is crucial for a smooth look from the outside. Another helpful tip is to hand baste this area before machine stitching. It gives you much more control over the alignment. I know hand basting might seem like an extra step, but it's one of those things that prevents a lot of frustration and rework in the long run. If you're still building confidence with invisible zippers, try this. Next time you're between projects, take some fabric scraps and practice installing a zipper using these techniques. You'll build muscle memory for the process without the pressure of potentially ruining a garment you've spent hours making. Think about it this way. You wouldn't run a marathon without training first, right? Practice zippers are like your training runs. They help you build the skills you need so that when it really counts, your muscles already know what to do. That's why I love our monthly skill workshops. You get a chance to really practice one particular skill, then apply it to a pattern that you actually want to sew. Again, check out the link below if you're interested in that. And if you've been struggling with getting your handmade clothes to look polished and professional, it might not be your sewing skills at all. It could be these little finishing details that make all the difference. To discover the other telltale signs that your clothes look homemade and how to fix them immediately, watch this video next to transform your sewing from crafty to something you're super proud of.